everyone, and welcome to the Brush and Bone podcast. I'm your host, Vaseodin, of the Left for the Vultures YouTube channel, and with me is my co-host...
Yo, that's me.
And today we have a very special guest, and his name is NicAlex. NicAlex, where did you go? You disappeared.
Yeah, I was looking for this light.
That's awesome. He just very coolly walks in, nice and slow. I love it. Welcome to the show, NicAlex.
I was sitting here, but I got roommates and stuff, so sometimes things don't stay where you put them.
Yeah, that's fair. Totally. I know how it is to live with roommates, man. I'll be honest, I prefer not to have roommates, but I know how it is to live with roommates.
Yeah.
So, NicAlex, we usually start with
Hey, you start talking about relationships and how you end up in your living situation, or, what it is about you that can't be happy with what everybody else has, or what about you that thinks, there's someone out there and you keep going back to it. There was a time at the end of my marriage where we were trying to hold it together, and I thought I was polyamorous. So I was like, well, maybe it's just because she's perfect. There's nothing wrong with her, but I'm still not happy. Maybe it's just that I need somebody else. I started going to them about 5 weeks into it, one night a week, every other week or something. They said, hey, we love it. I was talking and they said, we love you being here, your enthusiasm, your openness, your dialogue, but you're not you're not polyamorous. You're just a hopeless romantic, and we feel for you because it's you've got a lot of sadness and heartbreak coming because nobody is going to ever live up to the ideals of the hopeless romantic who makes everything seem into something significant. More I can fall in love with like this. I'm always like, oh, it's the universe doing it to me. It's not my choice, But immediately after something ends, your heart opens up and I can fall in love in an instant, But that's just the way that I feel. And I tell you this because I know it's about art, but there's a lot of that in what I do in my philosophies and the studies that I'm doing right now.
We'll get into that. So let's start with who are you and what are you known for? So, we focus on artists, on independent artists and their works. So what are you known for? What kind of art, and what is your style? How would you describe your style?
Yeah, well, who I am and what I'm known for. Who I am is the person that exists, after all the other versions of myself that I've been. But who I am now is I'm a Miami-based painter. What I'm known for, though, is my years of being a Denver-born poet. And studying with my mentor and friend, a guy who I met when I was 16. And he ran a poetry society, an arts and poetry society named after his mom. And he studied with the Beats. He was known as just off the beat generation, the last of the Beats. There's things out there, blogs out there, but I don't read them. I haven't contributed to them. His legacy and story and our connection is it's my pleasure to share, but it's also, really real and it's tragic. And anyway, so I studied with him and we published books. Our biggest achievement was our anthology, 10-year anthology, and it was entitled Existential Nightmare, Zero and Rejection Syndrome. There's copies out there. We submitted to Library of Congress, 110 pages, all selected, all the poems I just loved of Frank's over the years, and then the ones that I really thought were my top-notch ones. And it was published in 2012. Frank died in 2017 of exposure in front of the East High School fountain, a school that he graduated from, the East Angels. So one of my first paintings actually out here was one that I titled Angels, East of York Society. And it was just significant because we ended up, on East Colfax, east of York, over by the high school where he graduated from. But we started on South Broadway and spent most of our time, out there. different,
Is
just
that what
different
got
side
you
of
into
Denver.
painting? The loss of your
Well,
mentor, is it, or did you get into painting sometime while you were doing the poetry as well, or?
nah, like it was. I mean, I was an artist before I met Frank. I met him because I was writing love poems to this little hippie girl that I liked, and I thought they were, you know, whatever grade, whatever. and I saw that ad in the Westward, which is like the Denver New Times, and it was just a little ad in like the wanted section. And it said avant-garde and experimental poetry contest, and then an address like downtown South Broadway. And so I mailed in my 2 love poems. Got a call from a guy with like a voice, like you hear it before you in a room. It's the voice of a beat, his cadence and his tone and everything. I just got a phone call and he said, "Hey kid, you know, yeah, you won the contest and like come down and, you know, you can read at my poetry reading." So went to Apocalypse Boutique down on South Broadway. I was so young, my mom had to drive me down there. She came with me and we could hear Frank, and he was reading from Down and Out in London and Amsterdam, book about like, you know, women being down after his mom died. That's when he created the Maria Ceriac Society, which is like named after his mom, who's like Slovenian. So that's how, so anyway, that's my story. Like, it's good that it's documented here because people want to know how I met him. But I was an artist before I met him, but I wasn't somebody who like, you know, drew pictures or doodled or you know, had any sort of natural talent in like what is it called, like photorealism, or, you know, there's such some people that can sit down and they've been doing it forever. I don't have that.
So were you?
I always wrote. Yeah.
Were you self-taught, or did you learn in school?
Absolutely. Well, no, I mean, the thing is I studied with Frank, and I was my own person, but I learned a lot, and our lives just seemed to mirror each other. I was like a younger version of himself, but I was, you know, I was romantic. One of our biggest fights ever was like, he told me to wear all black, and like it was a huge deal. I'm like, man, this is not some regime or something, you know, but it was like important to him. But I showed up in a blue shirt over a black shirt at Denver Poets Day in Civic Center Park. It was things like that where I would still maintain myself with under his training, and like something you can only live, like learn how to be like beat. So he had like workshops that we would get together in the library because it's free. You could book it for a couple hours. He would list it in the Westward, and we would go there. And usually it'd only be me, him, and then like, you know, one of my girlfriends, or more towards the later, and like consistently was my best friend Doris Ashley, the only ever student of Frank during the time that I was with him, consistent student. But he would spend his time like either writing on the boards, we would write our poems, we would edit them, we would bullshit, whatever, talk about what we're doing. And he would pull the butcher paper off those rolls, and he would do templates. He had like black watercolor paints and like chalk, you know, graphite, like pencil stubs and stuff. And he would draw like circles and pyramids, abstract shapes like lightning bolts and things. It's just he'd get a red crayon or something and draw a red X with all these black circles. Like really good art, really interesting stuff. And some were more detailed and finished than others, just as a you know, an expression. But I had those rolls, you know, in a storage locker we called the archive, and it was like all his unpublished poems, all his notebooks. He journaled like crazy in those 3-ring 110-page, you know, lined paper notebooks. And I had like 330 of them. They were like labeled on the back, filled with poems and diary and all that. And it was the archive. And when I moved to Oregon, one of the things I took with me was that roll of butcher paper, about like 30 or so. I've never really counted them. There's about 30 of them. And I had said I was coming to Miami. I told everyone, like, well, you know anyone there? No. Like, you have any family? No. Like, why are you going down there? And I was like, well, I want to fall in love. I'm going to fall in love. And I'm going to be a great painter. And even though like I had never painted anything at that time, it was like, for some reason, somehow it was like I stopped writing poetry after he died, because it was less than a half a mile from me. And it was like a couple weeks after I had seen him last. And, you know, the last time was like him in front of a Burger King as I was on my way to the Mercury Cafe for a reading, and he wouldn't come with me. He was just begging me to drive him to Venice Beach, like drive me to California. But I had just like taken him back from Arizona. I took him to Arizona, then I had to fly him back, after 4 months, because I wanted him to be where it was going to be warm. I just had a feeling, he was out on the streets. And so he was staying in my basement, and then my wife was pregnant with my youngest daughter, Violetta, and she was saying, hey, I don't feel comfortable with him around because he was erratic. He could be prone to paranoia and those type of things that go with the mental health of like some geniuses, just whatever it was going through. So long story short, he was asked to leave. I told him he could stay, but he had to leave when I went to work. I work real early, my 9 to 5, and he wouldn't leave. And so we had to get him out, pull him out. And then he ended up, being exposure. But it's like, he had $900 in his pocket. It was early in the month. I helped him get his Social Security set up when there's just a lot of things that went into it. So long story short, he was my audience. He was like my partner in crime. And we did poetry together from the time I was 16 to 37. When he passed away, and I found out months later and saw his unmarked grave, and I just didn't have the purpose, it just didn't feel like it mattered. It felt like I didn't care how good the poem was because I only cared about his opinion. We were like that, we went to poetry readings, not to network, but to be heard and to, make sure that the street was still a part of poetry. It wasn't just performance. So I stopped painting. I went through some personal things, work, had a new baby, and was just back from Phoenix. Wasn't really doing anything creative when I asked for separation, and then my wife said, well, if it's separation, it's divorce. And that all unfolded pretty quickly. I ended up with choices on what I was going to do. And like I said, I faced myself and said, well, now I can, you got no excuses but to be what you always wanted to be the artist you always dreamed you would be. And so that's what I set out to do. And I used those templates, those butcher paper templates. That's why I was telling you that story. I used those as my first canvas. And it was, I couldn't do it like the girl I just broke up with while I'm going through a personal crisis now. Is she told me in December, because I bought this painting to try to network with this Russian painter that I met through my realtor. And she got all mad at me, this painting's ugly. And you don't buy paintings, be a painter. You always said you're an artist. Why don't you paint something? I was like, all right, well, fuck that. Sorry about that. I was like, well,
it's fine. You can curse.
Okay, I'll do it. I don't like this thing anyway. I was just using it as a ticket to the good life. Cause this girl's the daughter of what they call him, Russian oligarch or something. And I was just buying something she said was worth $3,000 for $200 as a ticket in. But you don't like it? All right, fuck it. And I took up some magazines and cut them up because that's what I started doing. That's what I did a little bit of in Denver with flyers and stuff, was collage. So I cut up these things out of these magazines, then got some epoxy stuff at sticky roof glue or something like that on, and poured it all over so it was kind of stuck and melted. And I painted some flowers on there and a bee, because I called my girlfriend Baby Bee, and gave it to her for Christmas. And it was my first artistic endeavor here. That painting ended up later being destroyed. It doesn't exist. It's on my Instagram. There's a picture of it early on. It's the first thing I did. And then I went to, that was the only canvas I had. I took out that roll of butcher paper, and I would just started, painting on it. I bought 4 colors, pink, black, gold, white, and then his were grayish brown. So I left some of that. I just started painting over it.
Types of paints
just doing whatever it is.
You got acrylics, you got oils, watercolors. What kind of?
Yeah, I use the acrylic markers. That's what I went to naturally. Okay. I was a skateboarder. I wasn't a part of a graffiti crew or anything like that, but I knew about that, I guess, from skateboarding, graffiti, being in skate parks and under bridges, and my time in Portland. And for me, I wasn't going to get an easel and a little thing with my paints and water and brushes and all that. It's just too, I don't know anything about it. I didn't go to school, but I could grab some colors and markers, and I just started, and it was good. I mean, I just felt so good to take something and like make it mine, because my life was feeling so like I didn't have that much control in it and couldn't see the outcome, and it felt so confusing. I didn't understand why I wasn't happy, why I ended up here, or what I was pursuing. But anyway, I started doing it, and it was just big, strong, bold lines in black and pink and gold, and tracing over his pyramids, then start branching out, blocking in things. And I just went from there. So I have a series of like 7 that are like the pink, black. And then I went further on, did all those paintings, moved into like painting over like magazines, fashion magazines. One of my ideas was getting into fashion down here, using my art or whatever to get into fashion. I really admire it. So I started tracing the lines and coming up with my own fashion with the neon acrylics is what I use, like thin and then really thick, and everything in between. Metals, like the metal colors, the liquid metal. And I started doing this whole magazine. And then I started just doing the freehand stuff. I had this National Geographic, like master's studies. They're like printed in 1960s for people with a subscription to National Geographic, and you could get like a book that would be on like Renoir, Picasso, Titian, Michelangelo, Trio, and I had a stack of them. And in an argument, my girlfriend threw all my stuff on the shelf onto the ground, and I was picking it up, and I saw that the pages were loose and they came out. And when I bought my markers, I saw that they were selling paper for like $17 for a little sheet, and I had all this. It's like 1960 vintage paper stock from National Geographic. And so they had little stickers of like a Michelangelo or Picasso here, and I just ripped that stuff out and then used this paper as a backdrop later on. But what I started doing was painting over the masters. I always say like Picasso is my hero. Like he died in a like rich, famous, and in a French chateau, but it's his line. The line of the forms of the bodies, the boys and the harlequins and that period. So I do figurative art.
Picasso, the Picasso influence is very clear in your art, but your art also stands out because you use those neon colors and you use very bright, the metallic markers and everything. And I know that a lot of your pieces also glow in the dark, which is really cool. Now, do you use glow in the dark paints, or do you use a black light? Or
see, I didn't destroy this one. That's the last one that I didn't pull
out. Very
cool. That's how they look. Then take this out. There's the paper. And yeah, the lights. What were you saying about the neons? I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah, so you use a lot of the neon colors, which you mentioned, and the metallic markers and everything. And I know that you have you've shown me some of your pieces that actually glow in the dark. So do they naturally glow in the dark, or are they black light activated? Or?
Yeah, they. I mean, they're intended to. Like, I figured that out early on because I had black lights when I moved into my apartment, and when I started doing this, and I found out early on that pink really had like a glow when the black light hit it. So I went back to the store, bought the neons, and I always liked that look. I used to promote like and hand out flyers for raves back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I always liked the neon stuff that they would use, and it would glow at the party, and they'd be all over the floor. And you could see the ones that the names popped out. And so I'd say rave flyers are a big influence on what my art is. I always try to put the model's name somewhere in here, cryptic, the location, the artist. That I always felt like that's why I like doing collage of we call it rave art, futuristic hieroglyphics, but putting all the flyers up. That was an early venture into visual art. But this is a magazine I was talking about. So see, like I started painting things like this, called these entanglement lines. That's the kind of stuff that I would draw in notebooks when I was bored, or do like my whole life, really. I don't know if you can see it, if the lighting's that good. But
yeah, we can see it.
I'm painting over this model space and just using this to like do my geometric abstracts, which I say are most influenced in that by Kandinsky. Kandinsky is somebody that influences the way I do the backgrounds and the abstract stuff. And yeah, that's what I was looking for, is that black light to show you. But anyway, your audience, if you just go to my Instagram at Fearful Symmetry, then I got a catalog of not all of my work, but a lot of it. and if there's multiple pictures on a post, you'll see different lighting usually of the piece that's on top. Yeah, and it's Fearful Cemetery. It's that's from William Blake. Do you guys know it?
Oh, William Blake is awesome. I love the dragon. It's so William Blake has some amazing pieces that are just so detailed. That
thing down and out in London and Amsterdam that Frank was reading when I first met him. He had a poem in there called like A White Rose for William Blake, and it was about him like trying to find his grave when he was out there, down and out in London and Amsterdam.
You know, they apparently found his grave. I just recently read a piece of.
Really?
Do you know the band Iron Maiden?
Yeah, I've heard it.
The heavy metal band Iron Maiden. Their singer, Bruce Dickinson, is very into William Blake, and he actually has a whole album that's based on William Blake's writings.
It's called The Chemical Wedding.
The Chemical Wedding.
Oh yeah.
And so
nice.
he was telling a story how when he was making that album, he went to. They knew the general area where William Blake had been buried, but they didn't know exactly where his grave was. So he took some pictures there at the site, and then later on, they actually identified where his grave was, and he went back and he actually helped put the marker on where his grave is. So now they actually have it marked, which is really cool, I think.
Wow, I didn't know about that.
I got
I just read
to add to that. Oscar Wilde's grave looks like it has like a bunch of like little pink splotches all over it. It's like girls put lipstick on and kiss this huge like winged angel. That's Oscar Wilde's thing, and leave their lip marks all over it. So it's his marble white gravestone looks like it has chicken pox or something. That's Oscar Wilde. And I mentioned William Blake because it's from a poem you'll know, but no one ever knows. Everyone knows the first two words or the first two stanzas, but no one remembers the last two words. And that's why I say it. It's like, tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. What a mortal hand or eye framed thy fearful cemetery. So that's where I'm at on Instagram. Fearful Cemetery.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Very, very cool.
Very cool. I knew that from somewhere. I'm like, Fearful Cemetery. I know he got it. I know it. It's a meaning from something poetic, and I couldn't remember exactly what it was, and now it all makes sense. Very cool.
Yeah, that's it.
Dude, NicAlex, so real quick, it's kind of interesting that you got your start in Portland and then moved to Miami because... Denver. Okay, but then from Denver you went to Portland. But I
lived in Portland and Phoenix for 3 years each and went back to Denver, but I was born in Wheat Ridge.
3 years each, okay. So I live in Portland right now. Gio lives in South Florida, and we grew up in Miami. It's kind of interesting because we both, between Gio and I, have been to the areas where you, other than Denver, I guess, where you kind of got all your influences from. And
yeah, I actually went to Phoenix last year, and it was with my whole family, and it was our favorite trip that we've taken. We've been to a lot of places in the U.S., and our favorite city to visit was Phoenix. And I mean, we traveled pretty much the whole state of Arizona, but we loved Phoenix. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Very different than anything we'd ever seen.
But I kind of... Sorry, go ahead, Jim. So I kind of understand where your art's coming from now, knowing that these have been your influences. I mean, Denver is just Portland but bigger, I guess, is the way I've been told by my brother-in-law who used to live in Denver. And I can see where you're coming from, because Portland has that kind of 90s punk street vibe. Miami has a whole different vibe to it, but the fusion of the two,
just to say, I was in Portland, when I was a teenager, like 2000 to 2002. So I was there, not long, just shy of 3 years, and I was young, and the influences are there, but way back,
Yeah.
Because I had only been studying with Frank for 2 years. We stayed in touch. I hosted my first poetry readings out there, and I went to Portland not even for any of that. Listen, I've had a lot of lives, like I said, when you start off, who are you? How'd you become who you are? Man, goes on and on. But I was out there because, I've got 4 daughters. I told you about Violetta at the end of Frank's life, but this was the beginning. And Yeah, I have two 25-year-old daughters. So I started when I was, young, and I was out there because, one of the girls was somebody I was really serious with, and things weren't working out. I was young, I didn't have things, and it was like going to Portland was to go see my family, like to figure it out. Out of high school, been in some trouble, didn't know what I wanted to do, just promoting for raves and stuff, and hanging out with girls and skateboarding and whatever, But that was like, I went to Oregon because my dad's he's full-blooded Native American Indian, and his mother's side of the family, like, it's Coast Salish, Pacific Northwest Coast Salish, and so I have cousins up there, and I don't know how it happened. Honestly, I don't really remember why it was, but I ended up going up there to stay with his sister Juanita, and I ended up staying with her son Bob, and all the experiences that went on there just had a lot to do with my life, my personal experience. Like, that's where I read all the short stories that were influential, started listening to Chopin, because, when you're that young and you got that much going on and you have like your heart opened up, and then it's like you have a hole because, this beautiful little girl is her name was Skyla, or is Skyla, Skyla Shine Juliet. And her mom was Greek, and she's really good. Like, she's married and went through college, like a University of Colorado. But it's a sad story. I came back from Oregon because my dad called me and said, hey, she's trying some stuff. She's not communicating with us. And I went to the house, and she was born near Thanksgiving. It happened to be there. And found out that, she had filed in the newspapers that she didn't know where I was, even though she did. And she was just trying to get custody because she had a new boyfriend who she married and was pregnant with another kid. And
oh, damn.
I lost my rights. Yeah, I lost my rights. So I didn't have to like financially support her. But that I wasn't a part of her life. I wasn't able to be, yeah, I mean, the police are like, the police arrested me and handcuffed me that day. And I was just like crying. I'd come back from Oregon, tried to put myself together, walked up to the door, saw a little girl run across the window. She answered the door, said, I'm not supposed to be here. She's going to call the cops. I said, fine, do it. And I was just like bawling in the street on the sidewalk, like getting handcuffed. And they're like, hey, we understand. And I was like, my little girl's in there. I haven't seen her, I'm not going to see her. And so that's all like there. So Portland was very like important. It was the first time I spent a lot of time with my family, because that side of the family, because my dad was put up for adoption. His parents, like I said, were both Native American. His mom was from the Nanaimo band, and his dad from the Menominee. And they were like barley pickers in Washington State, where he was born. But he was put up for adoption. All him and his brothers and sister were, because of alcoholism. And he was raised by a Jewish family in Chicago. So that's where I get the Chicago Cubs. You see some hats I wear, like my dad's from Chicago. That's like his music, that's his scene. That's how he met my mom, who was a flight attendant for United. She's like blonde-haired, blue-eyed, like Russian descent. So like Nicholas Alexander's, my real.
It feels like all this kind of just kind of built up to make you who you are in terms of being an artist, and it culminated in Miami. I'm assuming that's still where you are, is Miami, right?
Actually, I just had a transition from Coral Gables to Alapata.
Oh, okay, all right, cool. Well, so Miami has
in the business district,
Totally, Miami has a really big art scene. There, we talked about Art Basel. Art Basel is Miami's way of kind of showcasing artists locally. It is kind of a pretentious scene at times. I went to Art Basel it's very pretentious in a way. The way it started, it was just like a lot of people with money trying to bring up artists, but at the same time, it helped showcase a lot of like local artists, street artists, and it all started in the Wynwood neighborhood, which my wife and I took pictures for our wedding in. Oh, that's really cool. Love that piece, man. Was that featured in Art Basel?
I told everyone, because everyone would always say, oh, you're a painter or you're an artist, you go to Art Basel. And I was like, my statement from the beginning, and like of course it was part of it. You see, I knew in Denver, you're either going to make it as an artist, you got to go to 3 cities, New York, LA, or Miami. Why to have Miami in my head? I don't know, but like we even knew about it then. It had something to do with Basel and all that.
Yeah.
So when they asked, I said, I'm not going to go until I'm in the show. I've gone to the satellite things like Red Dot, Spectrum. So I've seen even the satellite stuff with that offers like really impressive art, really impressive prices, crowd, booth fees, you know. So now I haven't been to Basel, but I was at El Fresco, like the Vinyl Tuesdays they do with like that in Little Havana, just this last Tuesday.
Oh, cool.
I met a girl who said she's in Basel and she has a thing. And she said, it's really expensive. I can't support your work because I'm trying to sell like, you know, fund this event and this new marketplace thing. Anyway, I was trying to sell paintings and she's in Basel and she can afford the booth fees and all that. But she's like, yeah, it's really tight because the booth fees and this money, like I just really, and I said, you know, I get that you can't do that. But like you Basel artists, I said, it's hard for the street to be there. And she empathized, like she had just gotten in and she said, yeah, I know that there's no middle place, you know, either you're trying to sell stuff, you can't give it away for $20 at a flea market, or you see artists selling works, you know, prints for $1,000 and everything else, 5,000, whatever it is. I mean, there's no in between.
100%. Yeah.
So anyway, I told
market because
an idea that I had with her on how, so this is for Basel, this is what I'm going to do this year, I think, if I can get back in touch with her, is have the Basel artists support the local art scene, which is the reason why there is a Basel, and then they're going to make what they can. But like they need to reach across to the local, I'm not going to say emerging artists, but the talented artists who haven't found their audience or still like, you know, working on their craft. Like there's a way. And I know a way that I'd like to collaborate with her. Like we'll see if it happens. You know, you can follow and find out if I make it happen. I only know her as Lovely Sunshine. That's what she like, you know, yelled at me. She was like, you know, running out the door with her friend doing whatever it is. But I never got her contact info, even though we talked all this time. And I said, what's your Instagram? And she's like, Lovely Sunshine. I think that's what she said. But yeah, I got an idea for Basel, and yeah, it's gonna be a great thing. It's a great thing for Miami and all the satellite stuff. Last year I did a fashion show with this group Posh and Purpose, Doc Mike, and it's where I met my my current brand ambassador and consultant who's helping me with this transition away from markets into a new marketplace. Well, I met her at the Art Basel fashion show. It's called Art Meets Fashion.
Yeah.
And he works with brands, and they had the models carrying works of art.
That's cool.
The casting call, and that's where she was. Yeah, so that's what I did last year. Donnie's Devils, the lingerie brand, was carrying the NicAlex art, you know, down the runway, down on South Beach. So that's my Basel experience. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Cool. And yeah, that's the thing with emerging artists.
Fashion, like I said, like my dream.
Yeah. Emerging artists, like they struggle to find an audience, like you said, and it makes it very difficult because to get into a market where you can find a good audience that's willing to pay the price that you feel you're worth, there's a huge barrier to entry. Like I have a friend, Mike, that I do some of these art shows with, and we go to, I've tried to sign up for some of these shows for booths. You're looking at hundreds or thousands of dollars just to get a booth and to get in there, which is insane. But now you have some places, which is where I met you, like Fort Lauderdale's trying to do like a Wynwood type of thing with their Thrive Art Walk, where they're doing it every month. At the last weekend of the month, they're doing an art show. It's starting real slow. The one I met you at was it was supposed to rain that day. Luckily, it didn't rain, but it was still very, very slow. But I think these opportunities are really good for emerging artists to be able to get their foot in the door, because.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the thing, is like you say, like these places are important, but what's going on is that right now, because of my personal situation, I don't have access to my paints or my framed works. I've got a lot of inspiration and ideas. I'm 3 years into a 5-year plan to make it or break it or reevaluate. And it's like, so lately this past month, since I've been separated from my paints, I've really been focusing on like, you know, my brand, my name, like the business side of thing, like websites, photographs, this idea for putting together a coalition of collaboration and bringing, you know, a lot of small brands emerging unsigned, unrecognized, and but like talented people that have like really clean stuff and really great ideas, bringing them together. So like that's a part of my brand, and I've been working on like sorting out my things, pricing, different prices for markets, for websites, how to do that. That's not something that I got into art to do. I always wanted to be like, not just art for art's sake. I mean, art has a meaning, you should have a message. Like I have a dream, you know, a planet, and I read a lot. And so you study people in history, you want to be remembered, you want to be great, you want to contribute to the, you know, the unfolding of the story of the human condition, you know, understanding. Like Frank had always told me, he's like, you know, pursuit of self above all else. And he was kind of like, I mean, he lived that way for sure. Like nothing got in between it. And like he was Napoleon or King Kong or whatever it was, and I was a part of his society, and I saw that, and I always thought it was kind of selfish. But see, like beat philosophy and stuff, a lot of it's with the Eastern traditions too, like searching for something outside of the society or the culture you live in, you know. Like beat was never you know, the establishment, or people say like deadbeat. That's what somebody said to me. Oh, you're a beat poet? You mean like a deadbeat? I was like, no. That came as like, you know, trying to make something that was serious into like a, you know, a jab or whatever it is. That what it was like beat of like your feet on the street, or like the beat of the railroad car, like clicking down the train. It was like, it was movement, it was search, and it was like an inward search as well as like a physical one, from New York to California with a stop in Denver, where you know, Neil Cassidy was born, and Choir Boy, and the hero of Dean Moriarty in On the Road. So like what was I saying?
Accessibility and trying to
what we're out there like trying to make like art for art's sake, or living as self. Well, like I said, for me, it's like when you start understanding the self as like Brahman, or the self as like, you know, you're seen in all these things, the self-adorned, the dreamless sleep. You know, I've got symbols and things that I do in my art. Like there's so much, like we're gonna have to do another show because there's so much more to talk about my art. I'm more talking about like who I am as an artist, but there's things in here. There's a lot more to dig into. But long story short, I don't create the art like because I see it as, I know it has value, but I don't see that as, that's not it. You want to be successful, you know. Now I've been close to the ground, and like been living on just the ends, barely making the ends meet. So I have that urgency and that hustle and that drive and that motivation. The more paintings I sell, more successful I am, the more time I can take off work and fly back and see, you know, Violetta and Juliana, and, you know, be that person and show them that it was, you know, I knew what I was doing and I had to do it, and, you know, I made it happen. So there's that motivation. So with success, the goal isn't to make money and, you know, have that lifestyle and have that freedom and opportunities. You know, I love fashion. If I could afford that stuff, I would. But I'm not striving for that. That's not why I paint. And I mean, I'm serious. It's probably cliche, or everyone's going to say that. But honestly, it's like I developed like an acute anxiety disorder with this whole abrupt change. And I started getting restlessness at night. I got that from my dad. He has it too. And insomnia. So all my paintings, like people say like, wow, you've only been painting, you know, this since December 2022 to now, and you have so many finished works. But I would paint every single night. I mean, there's so much you can get done when you can't sleep, you're trying to be productive, and you're finding out that you know, the line actually comes out and it looks right the way you want it the first time. It's an intuitive painting. With poetry, at a work, you know, hours, 2 nights, 4 or 5 hours each night just to get a poem edited and lined the way I wanted it, you know, really perfecting and grinding it down. With painting, it's a lot more expressive and free and like less constrained. A poem, you have a full idea of where you want to go and where you want to end up with a painting. Like, I don't know how it's going to end up, even using reference photos. It's like I tell people, I'll paint your portrait, I use it as a reference photo, but it's not like photorealism, it's representational. I capture, and this is the four things in my female in these studies that I do. It's like what I call them, the female form, face, and fashion studies. So people always ask if I paint males. I've done a few self-portraits, and I used to color over in the male model magazines. But for me, it's the female. That's a philosophy that has to do with being a romantic and a Pisces, and that we can get into it if you want to. But the thing is that I'm just trying to capture the form, the line, like the Picasso line, and then the face. I really work on the details of the face, and that's the last part that I do. And the fashion is just like, you can be creative. And I never understood how fashion, works, how they come up with the ideas. To me, it's like the same. Anyway, so fashion is where I get creative with it too. And so that's what I do with those paintings. That's where it comes from.
So how do you?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
How do you find your audience and find a way to price your art? I mean, like you were saying earlier, you said one piece that can be $20 or it can be $2,000. What is it that allows you to kind of seek out a particular audience, or do you know who your audience is that seeks out the art that you particularly make, or the audience that you appeal to?
Well, like back when we were poets, we didn't care what the audience thought. It was almost better if they were hostile and didn't want us there, because that made it feel like we needed to be there more, because like that was our approach. So I guess I kind of never the audience. I mean, in painting though, I do take the audience, but more of like the audience as like humanity, like human. The audience is out there. I'm trying to reach them. I'm trying to capture something that I feel is important, a life lived, a unique life based on the context of which I was living, and in that history and that thing. So my audience, when I'm painting, I want to reach the people around me. But if you can't tell, I battle off like depression by going into mania. So I'm really like intense and all over the place in that. And I understand I can't really get across or explain it. That's why I'm trying to get assistance all the time. I got some different people who jump in, models or friends of mine or something. Hey, I love that. I think your art is value. You're not selling things. Maybe I could help. And I always think that'd be a good idea, because for some reason I'm too intense and they're like, whoa, they back off, well, I didn't know it was about all that. Maybe I'll get your number and call you later, But so I want, like, one of the things with the female form fashion studies is like, I just want to create or bring something like pretty, like beautiful, that like I created, that's done. When you sign something, it's done. I have so many unresolved things, stuff that's out there that I'm still trying to understand and tackle, and like, but a painting, when it's done and signed, is just, I that's one of my primary motivations, is just to bring something and to have people say, wow, that's pretty, or that's beautiful.
Cool. Have you ever had a painting that you started and then you set it off to the side and waited weeks or months before you got to finish it? Or do you usually like finish it, within a short amount of time?
Yeah, I'll be pretty like obsessive and just at it once I start something. So no, I can't think of like any painting that I started and put off. I mean, since I started painting in December 2022, this like last 3.5 weeks has been the longest time ever that I've gone without using those paint markers. But if you can see back here, I found some spray cans and stuff around here, and like some old like windscreen. So I started doing some stuff with spray paint. If you see me out there, like, yeah. So I have been painting some and being creative, but no, there hasn't been any works that I've left off. Same with poetry or anything that I do. Once I have the idea, I need to like I need to realize it and understand it, because it just goes on in my mind, and I'm really anxious to like get it down and get it right. As I have it in my head.
You mentioned having a 5-year plan. You're 3 years into a 5-year plan. So where do you see yourself, and what is your vision for your future and your goals within that time?
Well, by the end of 5 years, it was like, I'm gonna, make it as an artist, make my name as an artist, be recognized, and have some platforms, turn it into an income of living. I always wonder, if I made the money that I think I should. And you talked about pricing, and I missed the question and went on a tangent. I'm sorry about that. And you,
you're good. You're good.
But it's like, so we can get back to it, because it would make more sense. I know how your questions are like ordered, but what were you saying?
Where you see yourself in your 5-year plan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. I want to have a platform. I want to establish my name. I want to establish like a portfolio, networking. I didn't know any of it, so being there is going to show just a lot of dedication, persistence, hard work, talent, and you got to have some good luck too. And wealth is a manifestation, just like, love or happiness or anything else. I looked for love, found out, love wasn't enough, made it happen though. And now I'm looking for, like success, happiness, wisdom. And so I'm going to be more like, I'm going to have more integrity and balance between, my physical self, my mind, and my heart and my soul, and then my emotions too. Like I said, emotions for me are crazy, but then there's also the curiosity that comes into it, and I have a zero risk aversion. Like I'm always like down to like find out the hard way or something.
Hey, that's actually a really good trait to have, man. Do you sell your pieces? Like,
interesting lives.
I bet.
Sell many?
Do you sell your pieces like your originals, or do you just sell prints?
Yeah. I only sell originals. That's all I've ever sold. I've never made prints. I had a few prototype T-shirts. I had a little batch of like stickers, green Buddha, and then one of the form studies, and then some business cards with my art on it. But other than that, and photos on Instagram. But other than that, like the image is what it is. I sell my originals. I was at that al fresco. Atomic was selling like the same size print, 1 of 13 print for $150. And I was selling my originals of this size, which are like scanned, signed, cataloged. They're going on the website. They're going to be a part of the new marketplace. Like these were I was trying to sell for 160. Now they're unframed. They're easy to carry around, a lot of work.
Yeah.
But $160 this size, and then, but that's like direct from me, and I have an urgency and like a deadline to try to come up with this money so that my consultant can take on event director for this idea I have. But this one I had framed, and it was in a show in Wynwood a couple weeks ago, before the breakup and my move and all that. This one's priced at $1,000. It's the first one that I ever had matted and framed. I don't know if you can see the.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So that's the first one that's ever been that, and that's $1,000, because of course a gallery is going to take 40%, and I want to make at least $500 on that size painting. So yeah. I've sold stuff. The most I ever sold, I'm not at the $500 mark yet. I've sold some really great work that I'm glad they had it, and the people seem to appreciate it. And they've never said they regret buying it, only that they like it more and more. They were going to give it as a gift. Now they're keeping it. But when you sell like little sleeves with, what I have my early works, which is like marker over magazine stuff, it's hard to visualize like how it works as a piece of art unless you look at it like clearly. I always say, like, it takes more than vision and your eyes open to see, and something about it. You just have to look at the human quality. That's another aspect of my art that's just present in my mind all the time is as stuff becomes more, as technology becomes more of an advanced tool and a conduit or like a middleman between the artist's thoughts, their talent, and like it's the transfer of that on into something physical goes through machines. For me, like I celebrate the touch. It's not perfect, you know, the lines aren't there. It might have smudges on it. It might have my fingerprints. You can see like an earlier line where then I decided to bring it in or tighten it up. Like I leave all those things intentionally because there's a human quality to it. And I think it's just because I studied history and I always thought about finding treasure or like, you know, something valuable and old, and the pyramids and stuff, making something that lasts. But paper is really hard. It's really fragile. So when you're holding something like that, and they said that actually wood is the most scarce element in the entire universe. You know, all the other minerals, there's tons of it. There's planets the size of diamonds, but wood can only, like, as we know, only grows on Earth. And making something out of paper. So that's another style of mine. I'm not painting on canvas. It's pen on paper. That's probably from poetry. I'm used to working on paper, the butcher paper.
And that's such a cool way to look at it.
People won't buy, like I've never sold anything out of this one. This is the early one that I did, but I have these just so that you can see what I'm trying to sell right now is like, this is a stack that's like early works. So I have a $20 like support the local arts. I collect donations on behalf of local arts. So I have that scale. I have $40 stuff. That's like a little series I did about my Native American heritage, like a salmon series ripped out of a book called Warriors of the Great Plains. This big old like book. These are the magazine's early works. So they're $50.
Let's see some of them.
Yeah, you can't. Here, let me see how you can do this. Oh, flip it around.
I feel like that was like I got it. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's hard. I can't quite get the camera to work right. But like, so these are like collages. See, I'm painting on top of it. Anyway, I have a hard time selling these, so I haven't made what I think I'm worth. But I won't back down either. One of those early pieces on the butcher paper, I had them with me at this. Rooftop family, you know, like shout out to Rooftop family. Dr. Funkenstein has this thing on a what is it? It's like the patio level of a building downtown, and he hosts a lot of emerging artists. He has like kind of a thing. You can't be in one like back to back. Like he wants to bring new people in there. And someone offered me like, you know, $400 for one of those. This would be the most I've ever sold. And those, I told him, I said, I have them here. I probably shouldn't bring anything that I know I'm not going to sell. But like those things, like we'd be starting at, and I wouldn't even do it at like, if we're not talking like 4,000, you know, not 1,000. When I first did it, I said, you know, I'm going to sell these for $44,000. You know, that's what they're worth. And that's what Frank and I did as a culmination. So I don't mind holding on to them for as long as I make it, and either it happens or it doesn't. But so I'm not out there just looking for the sales. But yeah, I do sell work. I was at the Kava bar this last week. They had an open mic, and I sold 3 pieces out there. I'm going to a Saturday market, the River Art Walk, my first night market, this upcoming Saturday. I sold some at the El Fresco thing. I went to Fort Lauderdale, didn't sell a thing. Like, who goes to a market and doesn't even have a $20 bill in their pocket, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy.
To the local art. Me. I didn't make $1 at that thing. I didn't make $1. And so, yeah, and those are going to benefit you, the ones at night too, because then you can use, you know, you can show the versatility.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's how it's intended to be seen. You know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I paint in my studio with a black light over my desk, and as I'm painting, I'm in the lamplight, and I know by now how it's gonna show up. But I often, you know, click off the light, turn on the black light, and see what it needs to fill out. And in my studio is the only place that people have seen them all, you know, more than one of them, you know, hanging on the wall all together, interacting with a black light that fills the room. Like, it really is what I set out to do, is like create something beautiful, unique, me, you know,
that, you know, that really looks beautiful. Yeah, people should see it. So I think this art market's going to allow me to do that. I got to get some big black lights. So yeah, I'm working on it. It should be good.
And
but
I think you're doing everything right. I mean, you're putting yourself out there. You're doing a lot of events. You know, it's a numbers game, and you know, it's only a matter of time before people start seeing you over and over again. And they say it takes 3 times for somebody to see something before they remember it. You know, that's why a lot of commercials, you'll see like a Wendy's commercial, and they'll mention their new burger 3 times during that commercial. Or you watch a car commercial and they say the phone number for call 1-800-NEW-CAR, 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 and they'll say it 3 times because you know, that's what they say. So the more of these events you do, people start seeing you again. They'll be like, oh, that's that guy I saw that last time, and you know what, I love his work.
Yeah,
and,
you want to be in the same place. Yeah, for real. I actually did something. I had my table set up on Second Avenue or Second Street, like in Wynwood, next to an abandoned building, and I was out there for 2 hours before I got a warning and like the address to the permit office. But I was out there and I felt that I was showing people my work, and it felt consistent with my brand and with who I am. That's where I'd be. 1-800-LUCKY shut down. I was scheduled to be there. Everyone left because of the rain, but I was already there. I set aside my day. I had all my art. I'm in Wynwood. I wasn't going home, so I just set up over there. And yeah, I'm trying to get it seen, to be remembered. I want to take people's breath away, but I'm also not going to give it away. And the thing is I probably couldn't even give it away. You know, that's where the disconnect is between like being talented, having work that people, you know, if I can call myself talented, at least I'm hardworking and doing the most with what I have. That's my brand name, Raw, Resourceful, Real. You know, NicAlex Art, Raw, Resourceful, Real. So I am resourceful with what I've got. But to find somebody walking around who's going to drop like, you know, anywhere near $100, and I'm giving it away for that much, for something that's not framed from someone whose name they don't know. But on a street or in a market, do you really take time to look at it and to observe, like I say, the real tangible, you know, all of these are lines. You can see the marks. It's not trying to hide it, and it's got the smudges. It's not perfect. The way that the lights catch it, what the subject matter is, what the artist is saying, what all those symbols mean all over it, you know, that type of thing you can't appreciate in this. So how you find that, I have a lot of people telling me, so I appreciate tech guys like you know, because I'm not on any sort of other social media than Instagram, and I just use that to catalog my stuff and network. But I need like the people in the social media already become like, that's how you can make a name. I'm just not going to be the one to do it. I need if other people get enthusiastic, like these girls that are model for me, or these friends that I've had, or fellow artists, collabs, if they really like and enjoy my stuff and they put it out there, or they think that they can, you know, help me. I got somebody who's trying to put together a Patreon. Yeah, they said like subscribers, you know, for it. And I'm just not that interested. So for me, like even going to a market or standing on Wynwood for 2 hours, and I did sell one, that's one of the reasons why I'm an artist too, because that's like where I feel comfortable. I'm doing business. I'm speaking my voice. I'm letting my voice like be seen, not heard as a poet, but be seen. I'm in control of like manifesting my own destiny. Like this is where I want to be. And I didn't become an artist so that I could sit behind a computer and like upload photos or create like content. Like I create the content, I put it there, but sitting there and creating a site, I'm like, no, I need to get there. And my artwork from my early stage, the first 3 years, needs to fund my step into the next stage. Otherwise I don't belong in that next stage. Like that's the pressure I put on myself. And I want to be out there, because even if you don't sell anything, that, you know, the night at the Carver Bar is great. Being out at the Fort Lauderdale market was great. I didn't sell anything, but it was still valuable and worth it to me to spend my time and to put my effort into it and all that.
I agree. I didn't sell anything that night either, and I learned a ton. Like I learned so much. Even though I didn't make a penny, I walked away with a gold mine of information, you know, for future events that I do and things. So you mentioned two things that really hit home for me. So one of them was, you mentioned that you can't even give away your art, and this is funny because I see this a lot with musicians, right? So back in the CD days, like 10 years ago or whatever, and before, I would go to gas stations, and there'd be a guy parked in the gas station with his trunk open, and he's trying to sell his CD for $1, or they're trying to give away their CD. And, you know, people don't really care if you're a nobody. Like, if that had been Snoop Dogg giving away his CD or selling it for $1, he'd sell out in less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But the guy's a nobody giving me the CD, and I remember this happened several times, and every single time was the same story. I took the CD, and I may have popped it in the CD player in my car, heard the first song, then popped it back out and, you know, listened to something else, and then never heard it again, never listened to it again. And so that kind of marketing doesn't work. And even giving away your CDs, even your friends and family probably won't listen to that music, you know?
Well, this is my perspective on that. Is like, one is like, I would give it away. I do give it away, you know, and people do take it. But I just mean, like, in a market setting, like I said, the intensity, and it's about all that. And I'm doing subject matter that has kept me out of shows. Like, hey, you know, this is a family event. Like, try not to bring like the explicit stuff. And I'm like, I don't do explicit things. You know, it's not sexual. It's sexy. You know, and it's like, you don't even know where I'm coming from. Like, these are Instagram models. I'm trying to turn something that people scoff at into, like, you know, an empowerment thing, high fine art. Like, we're seeing something and it's right in front of our eyes, and it's like, we can't see the forest through the trees or whatever, you know? For me, it's like, it means so much, but they don't know. You can't get that because it's coming from me, and I'm going off on this, and they're not there. Like, I think I need to get into the people, or I need to get into the audience, or the
so that was my other point. So I said I got 2 points, right, from what you had said before. So my second point, which you just touched on again, which is great that you led right back to it, is the story behind everything. So the difference between, and we talked about this in a prior show, the difference between, say, AI art and human-made art is, people say the soul, and a lot of people can't define that, but the soul is that story behind each piece, the story behind the what it means to the artist, and then what it means to the person who's buying the art. And doing things like this, where you're telling your story and you're telling your whole journey that has led you to this point, that has, you know, at each step you've created paintings, and so you have a collection from, you know, you said you're the Native American, then you have the, you know, the ones from the fashion magazines. And each one is a step in your journey, and that story, that human element, is what's missing in AI art, and that's what gives it the value, I think. And that's what doing things like this like this show, for example, are, where you get to tell your story and your audience gets to learn more about you and about the meaning behind the art, is what gives it so much value. Like I said, there's I've been
waiting to be asked to tell my story, so, like, you know, congratulations on being the one to do it. Because I'm telling you, like, I'm gonna make it regardless, and, like, you know, I never have been and never will be, like, anything but myself, and I'm, you know, I'm somebody. I live, like, people ask me, like, where are you from? And, like, if I'm really, like, in a mood or philosophical or something, you know, I'll say, like, you know, yeah, I'm like an earthborn human, you know, like, there's gonna be a time where that identifies, like, what's going to be going on. Like we take for granted, or we dismiss, like, how magical and mysterious and, like, important, you know, life is, and what we do with it is.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, like, the humanity, and talking about, like, AI, I mean, that's been something when I started to do, all right, I've got the fashion, the face, the form, the female, but, like, where's the or, like, what is going on? Like, where's the dynamic, you know, the story? And I started thinking, and I'm really thinking about AI. I'm really thinking about, you know, the transfer of the labor basket from man to machine, the ones who gave the mind metal. It's like from a poem I wrote, Chris and Techno Sapien. You know, I think about that, but my question isn't really, like, what's the difference between AI art and human-made art, or can you tell the difference, or what is the difference? my mind goes to like, well, if we shed morality, not morality. Well, there might be that too. Who knows the morality of an AI? But I meant the mortality, like the flesh gave the mind metal. Now the mind has a vessel that could, exist beyond humanity. Our purpose could be the evolution of the mind and consciousness into metal, where it's going to finally find its fulfillment and come back around. So I think about, like, if I'm creating art that's going to last, as long as the pyramids, I mean, that's a high goal, but even if it's going to last, a couple hundred years, in a frame somewhere, like, it might be evaluated by AI, the future AI. So like, where's my audience? Like, if I'm trying to make something that AI would value, it's like, what art would artificial intelligence, who has experience and maybe memory and, has all that stuff, but like, and I just thought it was like the history too. So I try to capture like moments today where the interaction between our tools and machines is where it is. So I got girls holding cell phones. Could be an anachronistic, piece or a timestamp, in the future. So yeah, that's what I think about AI. I have a painting called The Singularity. I have one called what was it? Yeah, my titles change sometimes. So if you buy a painting or see a title, sometimes it'll be title one thing, then another time something else. But I definitely think about that, and I think it's an important part of art. Like, you got to be present, and you got to speak about the times. There's a lot of things going on, and you could speak on. I've done some political ones, but yeah, I don't know how we got on AI and that, but that has been something that I think about all the time. And I did a few paintings at the end of like this series that I did in these large 18 by 20. Oh yeah, here's the Singularity one. So you can see like how I think, and it was like, I started doing a portrait. That's the girl holding the selfie, and I did the eye, and then it started to like merge, with metal, through the face, and it just created this iconic face with like the single eye, whatever that is,
Really cool.
That's awesome.
or the Egyptian. But that's the merging, and I think it has to do with female. This is where some of my philosophy comes in. Before the creation of the heavens and the earth, the Creator God perceived wisdom and then created the heavens and the earth. So there's a dynamic, a creator, and then like a wisdom, which is like the right way to care for things or to grow or whatever, like a mother. So it's female and male. And so when I'm often doing like these ones, the female is like, the future is female, so my female figurative art is tapped into all of that, which is also like the future of humanity, what the purpose of life is. And I always told people, I said, I don't know man's gonna like last forever, like male species, but whatever sort of technology comes along, and if it's completely unhuman and metal and machine or what, alien, whatever, the earth female is like the pinnacle, the Notre Dame, or the, Beethoven's Fifth of like, like creation. Like for me, there's just such a beauty, a draw that I can't get, and I just feel like that's gonna last, And they say all art is like a portrait of the artist. So I've often wondered, why I'm representing myself all over this city with my name on it, as this is my art, with like these just pretty portraits of pretty women, all shapes, all sizes, but mostly just very, like I said, sexy, not sexual. Like there's people that said, like one of my collectors, one girl who bought it for me, she said, she was talking to somebody and said, I just love all his paintings. I root for all of them. And that meant on some emotional level, it touched her, that she felt that there was some vulnerability or some something that needed to be protected or was at risk. And so for that that collector, I accomplished what I wanted, or what I set out to do.
Since you mentioned the sexy versus sexual, is something that we've lost. I think, especially here in the U.S.
100%. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Everything is seen as anything that has to do with the human body is seen as sexual, and it's not necessarily always sexual. Like you can look at a nude woman, for example, and not be sexually aroused. Like you can appreciate
just appreciating the beauty.
Yeah, it's like
if you're going to be an artist, you're going to do that. Some of the oldest artists, the Venus of Waldorf or whatever it is, representational painting. So yeah, art has that throughout it. For us to be a society where it's like, and I mean, some of that is just my own thinking or conditioning about it, or my own struggle with it too, is you don't want to objectify. You don't want to reduce someone to just like, the physical form. Through the face, you get like the emotion, the personality. Through the fashion, you get the style. So I try and do more than just objectification or reducing someone to like, sex or whatever. But obviously that I'm thinking that means that I still have a conflict in there that I work on. And like I said, I'm still developing my craft, and who knows, how far this subject matter is going to like unfold, how long I'm going to be on it, or what I'm going to pick up next. But
and you keep building on your story, and that's what it's going to keep adding value to your work. That one final example, as we near the end here of our podcast, which I think summarizes the value of art and of the story behind the art. There's a guy come from the comic book world, so there was this comic book. So when you have a collectible comic that's worth money, generally you send it for grading, professional grading. They grade the condition and
I know about that. I know about baseball cards and all that.
They put it in a slab, right? Like a plastic slab. And once it's slabbed, then it's got the grade, and then it's worth whatever it is based on the grade. So this person had a rare comic. I forgot what comic it was. It was, I don't know, maybe an early Spider-Man or something. And worth, let's say $500. And he breaks up with his girlfriend, and the girlfriend gets mad. So he goes off to work. She takes that comic, takes it out of the slab, takes a Sharpie and writes all over it insults like, fuck you, you asshole, go fuck yourself, I hate your guts, and this and that. The guy takes it, sends it back to grade it. It gets graded with a really low grade because it's got, Sharpie writing all over it, and it's all crushed up. And because of the story of what happened to that comic, slabbed with a really low grade, this thing sold for like 5 times what it would have sold at the original high grade. And it's because of that story, and that's what people like to see.
Yeah, if you can get your story out there and your art becomes an expression of something unique, and of course, like the most famous romance art is the tragic, ones. So that doesn't surprise me that became popular there.
Of course.
And hey, to tie that into the first painting I did with that Russian one, what ended up happening to it is it got hacked up, like it got destroyed, like during one of the many flare-ups in this toxic relationship. That's just like, of course, like I said, love, go for love, but make sure you manifest a love that will last. And that means love isn't enough without respect, trust, and communication. And, love yourself and all that too. So that's my stuff. I think it's highly collectible like that. If you're into comic books and cards and stuff, my stuff is highly collectible. These series here, it's like the same thing, like a baseball player, just a different team, different color hair, different background, different fashion. But you can collect this stuff and it shows up good on the medium. And that's why I'm enjoying like where I'm at now, because I know it's where I'm at now. And like building it is probably like the best part of anything. When you get to where you are, you can sit back, but like this is the doing it. This is the becoming it. So,
awesome.
If you want to know more, you want to have more.
Where can they find more information about
well,
you or buy your art?
Really, it's my Instagram is the place where people see my art, and I post, what I'm doing and where I'm at and the things that I'm painting. Right now, I've got a website being worked on, local young guys putting it together, just like me, trying to have a dream and an idea. And it's, and I'll give them a shout out. It's, Animales Rojos, and, they got an online marketplace. They're going to have prints available through scanning technology and things that they have. So I'm going to be there. My phone number's out there. I'm at the markets, the Saturday markets, Rooftop Family. Like, I do those events. 1-800-LUCKY Winwood, Arlo, local art club. The Miami Heat Flea Market. So yeah, you can find me at those, but really, I guess, unless you see me out there and you get my card or my number, or you just go to my Instagram, like you can get in touch with me and I'll show you my studio. I'll tell you where I'm gonna be at. And that's how you can get the art. The story hasn't been written yet, but it's out there.
It's partially written. So with that said, at the end of every episode, we like to shout out artists that people may or may not know about, artists that influence us. And so we like to ask our guests as well, who is an artist that you're looking into recently, or that has heavily influenced you, or that you like more people to know about?
So while you think, I'll start, since you're still brainstorming there.
Okay.
My pick for this episode is going to be an artist that I found. We went on a cruise last year in January. My wife's family, they did a family cruise, family reunion type thing, and we went on this cruise. And most cruise ships have an art gallery, and so I love always going to see art. And this one painting really caught my eye, because my favorite animal is an elephant, and it was so colorful. Like, there was splashes of color everywhere, and it was so different than anything I'd ever seen in a museum. And so I asked about the artist, and the person there, the curator, he tells me, okay, this is by a guy named Create. And this artist, he's a local Miami artist. He started in New York, and he started as a tattoo artist, and then he moved to Miami and moved to fine art, and he started creating these paintings, and now he is super popular. He has his last like 6 shows have been sold out completely. He sold every single painting for thousands and thousands of dollars. But you can find him on Instagram. He live streams almost daily, and he goes by Create, K-R-E and the number 8, or KR and the number 8. His
that's
Instagram
like
is
a
Create
that's like a
Artifacts.
graffiti tag name.
Yeah, big time skater name. Yeah.
Where'd you see him at? Where did you see him at? Where did you see this elephant at?
On a cruise ship. And then I when we got off the ship, I looked him up and I found his story.
Yeah, that's
he
a
started
lucrative
as a
place
tattoo
for
artist.
people to sell.
Yeah, he started as a tattoo artist, and then he went to Miami, and now he does fine art. And he literally sells his paintings now for like $10,000 a piece and more.
Damn.
So yeah, but it's really nice work. It's really, really eye-catching and pops. So all right.
That's cool. Like, the artist that it's the artist that's like always on my mind, always a part of what I do. People know about him, respect him, but like I said, the last 21 years of his life is like, that legacy and that story is like mine, and it's my pleasure to tell, and follow in his footsteps, and like try and teach others about him, and in doing that, teach them about what he taught me, and bring it all back to to that school of the Beat generation. So it's like his name is Frank Winters. We would know him as like Dr. Frank J. Winters, and he was born in Globeville. He wrote plays for New York, like stage, like in his late teenage years. He's the son of like Slovenian immigrants, and Globeville's like it's like the little city beneath the expressways and the highways in Denver, by the dog food factory and where all the industry puts all their chemicals. Like he was from there. He knew he was from there, but he was dedicated to art. That's what he did. That's where he was. Early pictures, he's already got the black leather jacket and the slicked hair of the times, you know, his mother on a motorcycle. And he published books that you can find out there that I found during my course with him, that he would give me the titles and I would find it. Like the Ashes chapbook series. And I don't have all of my property here. I told you about that, so I don't have the book with me right now. It's been a while since I looked at it. But it's the Ashes series, and I think if I remember right, it's northwest of Globeville. That was one of the biggest publications that he had that he showed me. He was also a tattoo artist. He had a tattoo shop in Commerce City before I knew him in like the 80s when I was born, 81. But he was known as Pirate Butch, and so he was a tattoo artist. He traveled to Afghanistan and India, you know, in the 70s after being at UCLA Film School and studying with Richard Serra in New York and doing large metal sculpture and just all of that. So like he's known, you can find him. Those are his influences. And yeah, he spent his last 20 years like being my friend and mentor, and he believed in me. Like he's like a father to me. He believed in me. He wanted me to be the next Jim Morrison, and I was right with him. So of course, you know, I loved everything he said, and
yeah,
he was a, you know, a prophet, you know, because that was going to happen. And he pushed me. He gave me that tough love that you need, that motivation through just like, you know, who are you? That guilt trip of like, you know, are you a real artist? You know, are you letting things distract you? Nothing gets in our way. Like we don't care what people say, but you gotta create. It's like the pursuit of self above all else. And he would throw out things like, yeah, do you know about the dragon? And it's like, yeah, the dragon in the places and the cultures and the symbols that I've seen, it's like, for him, it came down to 5 things. And it was like, good luck, heaven, flight, wisdom, and wealth. You know, the dragon on the pile of wealth. So he'd say things like that over and over again. He'd say them and you grab onto it. Or he'd tell the story about like this sheep herder on like some mountaintop who spent all his life like raising like the most beautiful, perfect like herd of sheep, and like went to bed one night. He was very old, and that's what he had. And the robbers came in the night and stole his herd of sheep. And like he wasn't despondent, he wasn't sad, and the whole, you know, town was saying like, you know, aren't you so sad, you know, that this happened? And he wasn't, and they didn't understand it. And like the only thing he said was like, if they valued and loved what I spent my entire life doing so much that they felt they had to go and take it, you know, he's like, that's the greatest, you know, that's the greatest statement about what I did and validation of like who I am. Like, so Frank would say it like, you know, he said, go ahead, take my sheep, take all my sheep. And that's just something that sticks with you when you hear it as a kid, of like an outlook and a way to live life, you know. Those things stick with you, and they're intellectual, and they're born of history and human culture. And I know about it because of Frank, and now you know about it because of Frank, and he's who I talked to. Like I said, I didn't have to approach my first canvases blank. You know, I had all of his stuff on it. You know, like this is one of the ones that I didn't paint over. So like I said, like gray circles and all of that on this ragged paper. And I don't know if you can see it. There's signatures on all of them. It's like Frank Winters 2001. Yeah. And so I'll end it. I'll end it. I know you're ready to go. I am too. But I'll end it with like, I wrote a poem on the back of one of these, and I wrote it about him and us and our whole thing. And like, you got to hear it. It's like the one I called Battle at the Gates of Death. And it was like, you know, me bringing his name out from the underground and back into the light and life where I'm at or whatever. And this one I called Denverites. And even now I can recall a midnight phone call made from the marble lobby of a London hotel. Freshly arrived in the nexus of the West from the spice lands of the East, I enthusiastically divulged all that I experienced since my hasty departure from the city of our shared birth. Oh my gosh, I wrote this in marker. I might not be able to read it. Oh, wait. Memory. An unblemished smile of timelessness that gives out themselves to the point of death. I don't know, something like that. What could I have known of the days to come as I laughed on the phone with triumph as my soul embraced? And it wasn't so long ago that we stood upon the shores of my grandfather's grave, bellowing into the shifting winds that there was a man who lived. Appropriate that such booming visions were born to a voice that merges with space and time. All who wept at the dance watched you carve an epitaph upon the spring morn. I understand that there will be no truce. The rebel flag yet unfurls, timeless and spaceless, in the manner of the savage raging seas, whose white crests accent the mood and blues of endless tribulation. And that was like dedicated to Frank.
Hell yeah.
You know, a long time ago. I dedicated to him now.
That's amazing.
And when someone tops up the 44 grand for this one, you know, that's going to be
very nice.
That's why that's 44 grand. Now it makes sense why it's 44
completely.
All right, so to close it out, Vase.
For me, today I'm going to talk about a more well-known artist. It's H.R. Geiger. For those of you who don't know, he was the inspiration for the design of aliens in the Alien film franchise. Also, a lot of inspiration was taken from H.R. Geiger for the Hellraiser series. So he has a very unique aesthetic, very hell-like, very alien-like, and you've talked about this before, Gio, in a previous episode about how certain artists are so unique that you immediately know that it's them. You look at a piece of art and you immediately know that's an H.R. Geiger piece. This is one of those artists. Like, there is zero chance that anyone would confuse any piece for anyone else but H.R. Geiger. And that, I think, screams of someone who is truly talented and a revolutionary in the art field. Inspired dozens of films and dozens of other pieces of art and aesthetics that are now part of our culture, both pop culture and movie culture and all that, and nerd culture, of course. But I think H.R. Geiger is someone who really revolutionized art in many ways, and it is something that I think a lot of artists aspire to, is being someone that unique that people can...
Somebody who has a unique voice.
Yeah. Like a Frazetta, or, we talked about it in another episode about how Frank Frazetta, his style. But yeah, I think H.R. Geiger falls into that category.
All right, cool. Well, this was a lot of fun, and we'll definitely have you on again, so we can expand and delve into the meaning behind some of your specific pieces, and I think that would be a really cool conversation to have. But we'll have all of your information, all your contact info, your Instagram, all that stuff.
All will be in the show notes.
Yep, in the show notes and the description on the YouTube video. And thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, everyone.
Brush and bone, it's the place to